Dear Irene, Mimi, and Max, I feel honored to have been invited to participate. I told Elaine that nothing would stop me from being with you, but I didn't count on a war or the FAA banning flights in and out of Israel or Delta suspending flights indefinitely. Victor and I were partners in our orthopedic practice for almost 30 years and friends from when we first met. I wish each and every one of you here the blessing of having had a partner and friend like Victor, and I'll explain what I mean. And when I finish, I believe you will begin to understand why I seriously doubt that anyone has had a partner and friend the way Victor was for me. We practiced together, as I said, for almost 30 years, and our only agreement was a handshake. We were comfortable enough with each other that we never felt we needed to put anything in writing. Either of us could leave at any time with no penalty. I want to surprise you, Mimi, by telling you that you contributed to our comfort level. When you were a newborn, Victor came to Phoenix and stayed with Elaine and with me for about a month while you and Irene were home. When he moved in for that month, we had family dinner every night. He was there with the dog and the kids, and he was introduced to kosher Jewish cooking. Chicken soup and brisket of beef were hits, gefilte fish was not. By the time Victor moved out a month later, we were comfortable and good friends, and I believe that contributed to our not wanting or needing to have a written agreement. As we shook hands, I said the traditional phrase in Hebrew that you say when you give your word. I said mazel and bracha, which literally means with luck and blessing, and that handshake lasted for 30 years. I noticed that mazel, luck, is put before blessing, and I think that there is an element of luck in that, but we were very fortunate. We were both busy surgeons and needed a third person to be able to make our office work. And we were fortunate enough to have both mazel and bracha when we found a quiet genius of an office manager named Wadi McFall, who then ran our office for more than 25 years. You will get a sense of how our office ran when I tell you that many of our core employees, Peggy and Diane and Dave and Connie and Wadi himself, we were all together for over 25 years on average. No one had a written contract. We had yearly meetings, year-end every year, and they consisted of Victor and Wadi and me. We, of course, had lawyers to make the pension meet regs, actuaries to tell us about pension contributions, attorneys for the paperwork, but at our year-end meeting, it was just Victor and myself, and we decided everything between ourselves. We discussed, of course, bonuses, pension contributions, capital expenditures, overheads, contracts, and we often disagreed, but we always managed to reach an agreement or a middle ground where we could both be comfortable. And we never let the meeting end without every item being completely resolved. And once it was resolved and we made a decision, we never looked back. Victor and I covered for each other for those 30 years, and if you think about it, his coverage for me lasted about 15 years of nights and weekends. And never once during those 15 years of him covering for me did a patient ever say that my coverage was unavailable or that their problems were not addressed. His medical judgment was excellent and sophisticated. If in the morning he told me there was something that didn't have the right feel, I knew I had to follow up immediately because there was something there. He had a medical, sophisticated sixth sense, and that was invaluable to me. He was a friend that I could confide in, and get an intelligent, reasoned, and good response every time. There was a sensitivity there that can be shown in the gift that he gave me on my retirement, 37 years after I completed my residency. What he had done is, I finished my last surgery 2 months before I retired so I can follow up with the final patients. And a month after that, Irene and Victor, Elaine and I went out together, and he presented me with this, which he had taken from the operating room on my last surgery, my last scalpel. I had embedded it, as you see, in plexiglass and labeled it. Saul N. Schreiber, MD, Master Knee Surgeon, and the name, date, and initials of the last patient. It has been a prized possession of mine since then, and has sat on my desk every day since I retired. There's a Jewish prayer that we say for the departed called Yizkor, means the remembering. And there's a line in it that says, Yehei nafsho tzurura b'tzror hachayim. May his soul be intertwined with the soul of the living. And the prayer refers to the eternal soul, as it goes on to talk about Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. But I've often thought of an alternative answer or understanding of that line, b'tzror hachayim, that it refers to us, here, today, the living. And as long as Victor remains within us and influences our thoughts and our actions, his soul is intertwined with ours. A personal, heroic example of this is when about 2 weeks ago, one evening, Elaine and I received a phone call from Irene. She was calling us to find out how we were doing as rocket attacks came in from Gaza. She simply said, Victor would have seen the news and picked up the phone, and in his absence, she felt she needed to do the same. There are some words that have layers of meaning and are difficult to translate from language to language. And one is shalom, and the other is chaver. Shalom means peace, but it also means to be in a state of peace, and it also means goodbye. Chaver is a friend who is more than just a friend, a special friend. In a word, Victor. And so, goodbye and be at peace, my special friend. Shalom, Chaver.